The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Charney Report. What are we going to talk about tonight? The summit meeting that's going to be held in Camp David, former place that I was a little bit of an occupant with Jimmy Carter. Those of you who know me from the show know that I was fairly involved with the Camp David 1, we'll call it. And tonight we're going to talk about Camp David 2, and to get the Palestinian side of what he thinks is going to happen, we invited the ambassador for the Palestinian mission to the United Nations, who was a nephew of the chairman, Yasser Arafat, and his name is Nasser Al-Kidwa. First time on this show, and welcome.
Thank you.
Is this a big event for the Palestinians?
Of course, I think it's a big event for the whole Middle East, and let's hope that it will succeed.
Now, you just come back from Cairo, and you...
Yes, from Palestine. We have just finished the meeting of the Central Council. You probably heard about the results of the meeting.
Was that the meeting that says that you'd like to declare a state by September?
That was among the decision taken by the Central Council, yes, that with the end of the one-year extension period of the transitional 5 years agreed upon between the two sides, we have to take measures to actualize, let's say, actualize the Declaration of Independence of 1988.
Now, you people analyze Israel all the time as Israel analyzes you people. Do you believe that Barak is going to Washington with a directive from his government, or do you think he's very weakened by what has transpired in the last few days, where Natan Sharansky is threatening or will pull out his party, and also the National Religious Party will pull out?
Yes, indeed, he definitely has some troubles within the government, but I think he is not that weak. I also think that no Israeli prime minister would have an absolute power within the parliament, within the Knesset. So maybe Mr. Barak's plan is to go directly to the population with a kind of referendum. So if you combine both, his relative strength, not absolute strength, plus his plan to go directly to the people, you would conclude that he is not in that bad shape.
So you believe that he can bypass the parliament or the Knesset and go directly to the people if he brings back a deal? President Clinton yesterday said that, I've been through this Camp David stuff a little bit, and he lowered expectations, saying that if you got a framework or, an agreement to agree and then an agreement not to agree, as we had sometimes in Camp David 1, he would be, in a sense, satisfied. Would that satisfy the Palestinians?
Well, I think that we will have some serious efforts in Camp David. We also probably have kind of a process or whole procedure. I don't think that there will be only a few days meeting followed by an agreement. Probably we will see more than that. Maybe a continuous meeting with some interruptions, maybe 2 or 3 meetings. I'm not sure as yet, but we are talking here about a process which will lead to the agreement. The most important thing is to meet the critical deadline, which is the 13th of September this year.
Well, that's very important what you said now, because when we did Camp David 1, the idea was to wrap up an agreement. And what we got was an agreement in principles in September, and then we did the treaty in March.
That's correct.
And you're saying to me that what this might be is a process, and then stop, and then go into a process again. Some people contend that President Clinton, organized the Camp David II meeting in early July to give him some more time in case he has to convene again.
Probably that's correct. We are talking here about attempts to reach framework agreement. And then maybe some kind of referendum in Israel. Then another attempts to reach final agreement. And maybe at a later stage, after some kind of implementation, we are talking about treaty. So there are several steps ahead of us.
But the deadline is for a treaty or for what on September? What does the deadline call for?
Well, we might try to reach a treaty by 13th of September. I personally think that this might prove too much for the parties. If we succeed in reaching a framework agreement, followed by a referendum, and then an agreement itself, final agreement.
A referendum for the Israelis, and how about the Palestinians? Do you need a referendum also?
We have our constitutional institutions. We have the PNC, we have the Central Council, we have, of course, the Legislative Council also of the Palestinian Authority. And that, for us, I think, will be enough.
So you don't think you have to go directly to the people? You go through the process that's called for in your constitution?
I think so. That would be enough. But in any case, after the agreement, after the establishment of the state, of course, there should be some new elections for both the parliament and the presidents.
In
Palestine. Yes.
What? When did you see your uncle last?
Just 2 days ago.
Is he? I'll assume he's tired. That's for sure. But is he excited about going to Camp David?
He is tired, as you said. I think his life pattern is too hard. It's, I think, hard even for young ones to take. Continuous work, continuous travel, continuous flying, continuous tension, and of course that's tiring. You add to that, of course, the responsibilities, especially during this period where we are probably very close to achieving something big for the first time for the Palestinian people. I'm sure that he feels the burden of the responsibilities while coming here to Washington for the summit.
How big a team will he bring? Do you know?
I think there will be some limitation imposed by the host, given the limitation of the place itself, Camp David. Yeah, I heard about 12 persons from each side, plus some additional delegations staying in a place maybe 10, 15 miles away from Camp David.
They do this, by the way, to have a news blackout. It's a place, one of the things that President Carter wanted to do is to get everybody away from the media so there could be no leaks. And in the Middle East, boy, that's a big thing because there's a lot of leaking in the Middle East. So, and a friend of mine who covered this event said he was holed up right outside Camp David for 10, 12 days as a reporter. He was absolutely bored to tears. I mean, nothing was coming out. And so they hope to do this without a lot of leaking, which is very, very important in the Middle East because it could topple something before you know it. So it's very rough. When I went to Camp David, or we did the Camp David agreement, there was basically an outline in President Carter's mind about where he was going to go with this thing. He had done some real good polling, and he had some real good information, and I personally was involved bringing him some concepts which we worked on before Camp David. This thing seems to have happened so quickly that I'm not sure President Clinton knows where he wants to drive this. So do you have a feeling about this?
Of course, I don't have information, but I doubt that the president doesn't have a fair idea about the direction. Let's not forget that the administration has been engaged in this thing for the last 7 years. And if the administration, after 7 years, does not have initial idea about
No, I think they have ideas, but I don't know if they can solve the real big issues. As I understand it, Jerusalem is a big issue. Refugees is a big issue. Indeed, those are the two big issues, right? Is there a third big issue?
Well, probably all the issues are big. The one which becomes the biggest is the one which is being negotiated at that point. But I think all of them are big. The territorial dimension is important.
But Nasser, do you really expect that the refugees who left Israel in '48 can go back and live physically in Israel, or are you looking for compensation there?
On all issues, I think we have two aspects. One is the principles involved, international law involved, on which the parties have to agree. The parties have to accept the provisions of international law. Another aspect is the practicalities of the matter.
Right.
What kind of mechanism we can agree upon to implement kind of a solution. I think if we apply those two aspects to all issues, including the refugee, we can find a reasonable solution. Really?
That's good to know.
Yeah.
How about the big issue of Jerusalem?
Well, same thing. International law is clear when it comes to Jerusalem. Israeli occupation of eastern part of the city is not acceptable. Also, international community agrees that the city must remain united, must not be closed before anyone. Freedom of access to all, not only inhabitants, but to all people of the world should be guaranteed. And on the basis of this, I think we can find a solution which would respond to the rights of the two communities, the two peoples, and also the rights of the three religions of the world: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Jerusalem does not accept exclusive ownership, and I think the Israeli side understands that. Now, as an opening position, one could say it's not subject to negotiations, but in fact, if Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is to be recognized by the international community, if this is to be accepted by the Palestinians, the Arabs, and the Muslims, all Israeli officials know that a reasonable solution should be found, one which responds to the rights of the Palestinian people and the rights of the Muslim as well as the Christian.
So you're saying that it's a possibility that one thing, you could accept Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, provided that the three religions have access to the city?
No. I was talking about principles, but we can accept Jerusalem as the capital of Israel if East Jerusalem is accepted as the capital of Palestine.
I see. What about Abu Dis, that concept?
Well, Abu Dis is outside.
It's a suburb of Jerusalem. Aren't you building a building there for Parliament or something?
Yes, and we of course will have to expand East Jerusalem, the original East Jerusalem, into new suburbs, including Abu Dis. But the issue remains, of course, the Arab neighborhoods in Jerusalem itself. Let's try to recall certain facts. One, the overwhelming majority of Israelis have never set foot in the Arab neighborhoods of East Jerusalem. That the Arab neighborhood of East Jerusalem, including, by the way, the walled city, remains overwhelmingly Arabs, in spite of all settlement activities and things of that sort. Three, that the city is actually, if not formally divided, is distinguishable. You walk in Jerusalem, the moment you cross from West Jerusalem to East Jerusalem, you immediately notice the new situation you are seeing or you are facing. So the differences is there. The actual distinction is there. What we need to do is to formally recognize the existing differences and the distinction which is there, and to try to find the best legal and political formulas to accommodate both sides.
The negotiators, have they been working on these problems incessantly, just continuously? The Israeli and the Palestinians have been meeting all the time, right?
Negotiators have been working on these issues. Intellectuals have been working on these issues. There have been scores of meetings and seminars among the two sides at all levels to discuss these issues. And it seems to me that the parameters of a solution are known.
So you're pretty hopeful
to the officials. I am hopeful as long as the two sides are willing to take the necessary decisions. What is needed now is political decision, not ingenuity. Ingenuity, of course, will be also needed, but the main thing is decisions, political decisions on the part of both leaders. And I think from our side, the Palestinian side, the will to take those decisions are there.
There's a lot of rumor around that your uncle has a tough time convincing his population to make any compromise. Is that true?
Well, I think the situation is basically the following. The Palestinian side correctly believes that they have already made the compromise. The Palestinian people believe that all Palestine is theirs, just as many Israelis believe that all mandated Palestine, this territory, Eretz Israel, whatever you want to call it, is theirs. The Palestinian side now accept the compromise of establishing their own state on a mere 23% of the size of the whole territory. That's less than a quarter of mandated Palestine. So as such, the Palestinian people believe that they have already made their share of the necessary compromise. Nevertheless, I'm not saying that that will be it. We will be also ready to show some flexibility, but certainly a very limited one, given the fact, as I was trying to explain, that we have done our share, we believe.
Also, when you teach children in your schools about 1948, when, or 1947, when there was a partition of Palestine, what happened?
Well, until now we don't have our own curriculum. In the schools until now follow the Jordanian and the Egyptian curriculum. We are still in the process of establishing a new one for all the schools in both West Bank and Gaza. But I think regardless of such changes or such development, we will have to explain to them some objective facts. Until late 40s, the Palestinian population were the majority. They owned most of the land in mandated Palestine. And then things developed in a different way. The General Assembly partitioned Palestine, then the Arab-Israeli war started, and the whole conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict entered into a new stage, I would say. We, at this stage of history, we cannot ignore our rights and our history. But at the same time, I think we have to be decisive, as the other side has to be, in accepting the historic compromise we are getting into.
Well, if you look back in history, and you can't always do that, don't you think the Arab people, you didn't have a Palestinian Authority then in 48, but don't you think it was a mistake not to accept the partition? Look at all the wars you would have saved to everybody.
Well, in retrospect, everything, of course, is easy. In retrospect, one could say, of course, it was a mistake, because had we accepted the partition resolution, the agony and the suffering of the Palestinian people would have been reduced, and we would have had a state. I'm not sure, by the way, that of the Israeli version of the story, that Israel indeed accepted the partition plan. Israel, of course, or the Israeli officials, the Israeli leaders were smart enough, were sophisticated enough to declare acceptance of the resolution. However, actually on the ground, they immediately started to take different positions. I mean, different measures.
I don't know. I wasn't there in 48, and I can't testify, and neither can you, because maybe you were there in 48. But I believe that the world opinion would have been such that they would have held back the Israelis if they would have found. I mean, here they were 600,000 people. There were a bunch of Arab countries surrounding them. So I don't think they were that brave to go forward. It might have been a necessity, but I'm not going to argue history now. But it would seem to me that the world opinion would have pushed them back. So I'm not sure they were that sophisticated then. Anyway, we got to cut for a break, and we'll come back with Nasser Al-Kidwa, who's the ambassador of the Palestinian mission to the United Nations and is well related to the chairman, who is his uncle. We'll be right back.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're speaking with Ambassador Nasser Al-Kidwa, who is the ambassador from the Palestinian mission, or of the Palestinian mission, to the United Nations, and also is the nephew of Chairman Arafat. And he's been here for a while, and he's here it's a historic moment. I mean, there's a possibility that there may be a real peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, both sides have a lot of work to do, and both sides have to convince their population that it is in their best interest. And most importantly, what Nasser is saying is there must be strong give and take on both sides and some flexibility. And you can't always run back in history anymore, because history's past. I mean, you go to the Balkans, you won't find anything that was there before, or you go to Yugoslavia, you'll find Romania there. I mean, things just change all the time. So it's possible that something very strong and beneficial will come out for the world, and will relieve the dynamite that's implanted in that region, so it doesn't blow up. You know, I many times I met with the Chancellor of Austria, Mr. Kreisky.
Yes.
who gave you guys recognition way back. And I said to him,
Absolutely.
why are you so interested in the Middle East? Why? I had long conversations with Kreisky. He was a Jewish fella. And he said, you know, if the Middle East blows up, then Russia will make an attack on me, and I'll also have problems, so it's better to get peace done. So if it's possible, it'd be great. The people that I talk to, the American Jews and the Israelis, and I've just come back from Israel, I'm not sure they're clear on what they're willing to accept and they're not willing. I'm not talking about the politicians now. I'm talking about the people in the street. And you said something very interesting to me about the constellation of the power in Palestine, or the Palestinian entity. And you said we were never educated together, we never lived together, therefore we have a lot of factions. And in a sense, you're similar to Israel, because Israel has a lot of factions also. And you got to be a miracle worker to bring all these things together. So in a sense, to do a Camp David with Egypt was a little bit easier, because you had a sovereign government with a sovereign government. You're just talking about how to define this. It wasn't that easy, but it was in principle maybe a little bit easier, because this is, you're going to start, if you want, a state. Has Barak said officially that he would recognize a Palestinian state?
I don't think that he said it in that clear term, but I also think that it's a given now that there will be a Palestinian state. I think the Israeli side understands that this might be even beneficial to them. To have an agreement between two states is something different than having an agreement between a state and an authority, for instance. So to achieve all the benefits of final agreement, I think the agreement has to be concluded between two states.
So you think it works good for both sides?
Absolutely. Of course, it's much more important for us. I mean, this is the cornerstone of our national struggle for years now, to achieve a Palestinian state for the Palestinian people, not only for those who live there now, but for other Palestinians around the world as well.
By the way, is there any chemistry between the chairman and Barak? How do they get along?
I'm not sure, but from I hear from different sources, different places, I don't think that there's a great chemistry until now. It was different, I guess, between President Arafat and Prime Minister Rabin.
Was there a real strong chemistry there?
Yeah,
I know he went to the Shiva.
There was some fight, of course. There was some tension, but I think that there was some chemistry as well. With Mr. Barak, I don't think that such chemistry exists now, but maybe we need this kind of tough, strong men who would then take.
How about I make you feel good now? I'm going to make you feel very good. When I went to visit your uncle in Tunis about 10, 12 years ago, sent by the Israeli government, I reported back to Yitzhak Rabin, and I said, Yitzhak, I think that Mr. Arafat, I think he wants to meet with you and to try and make something happen in a secret way. And he said to me, I don't believe in this guy at all. I just don't believe in him. I think he was a terrorist. I think he doesn't lead anybody. Shimon Peres was more open to it. Ezer Weitzman more open to it. Chaim Bar-Lev. But the guy who was most against it was Yitzhak Rabin. And then 10 years later, I'm on a White House lawn. He's shaking his hand, and then later he's shaking his hand more, and it winds up that Arafat visits Mrs. Rabin at a shiva call in Tel Aviv, Harav Vashi Street. It's unreal. I mean, to see all this history, you can get a little nuts, you know. But that's life in the fast lane or even in the slow lane. So the chances are that they might develop, and Camp David has a lot of magic, you know.
I hope so,
and,
yes. They
the
say
food
that
is good.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place, a lot of magic,
Yeah.
and a little romance, you know, and good movies. And maybe there'll be some chemistry. Do you think it's important, by the way, in relationships like this to have a chemistry, or it doesn't matter?
I think it helps, but in any case, at least confidence must be there. Without confidence, I think that things might be much more difficult, of course, to deal with such complex and
What do you say
and
to
difficult issues.
Mrs. Ashrawi, is that her name, who says...
Yes, Hanan Ashrawi.
Hanan
Yeah.
Ashrawi, that this thing is a waste of time, or I think that's what she said anyway. It can never succeed. I don't know who she's blaming, either your uncle or the Israelis, I'm not sure, but from what I saw, she wasn't for it. So two questions. A, does she have any real power in the state or in the entity?
Let me first say that definitely she would blame the Israeli sides, because whatever internal differences some Palestinians might have when it comes to our national issues and negotiations with the Israelis, there cannot be any disagreement on the need to end occupation, for instance, or to establish a Palestinian state. Now, when it comes to Mrs. Ashrawi herself, I think she is a very smart lady. She is excellent in dealing with the media. She is very capable, and I think she has done very well in this regard. Political influence, of course, is something else.
Is she in the parliament, or?
She is a member of the parliament, yes, from Jerusalem.
How often does that parliament meet?
Continuously, like any other parliament.
Yeah.
Yes, they have, of course, a recess.
No summer vacations?
They have a recess, definitely, yeah. Soon, I think they will go into recess.
Now, Nasser, you were born where?
I was born in Gaza.
Really?
Yeah, I was born in Gaza. My mother was born in Jerusalem. My father was born in Gaza as well.
What did your father do?
Now he's retired. He's now over 80.
Was
he's trying to enjoy
was
life
he part of?
Gaza.
Was he active, or he was just?
Yes. I think it was kind of destiny. It wasn't a matter of choice for Palestinians to be active and to participate in the political life. Of course, not all of them did that equally, but most of them, one way or another, were involved.
And when did you realize? How old were you when you said, well, maybe there'll be a Palestinian state one day? When did you get involved in this?
I have always been convinced that there will be a Palestinian state. I mean, you have people here, proud people with history and determination to find a place under the sun, as we say. I have never had any doubt that this is going to happen. Now, at some point, maybe we thought of a democratic state for everybody, Muslims, Christians, Jews living together.
You mean one state where everybody was under one flag?
Yeah, in the 60s, this was our political program, which was totally misunderstood by the other side, and it was understood as an attempt to destroy Israel more than anything else. And then we came up with another political program with additional concession, I might say. That is the political program of establishing a Palestinian state alongside Israel, which we are trying to do now.
Are you having any trade with Israel now?
We have lots of trade, but very imbalanced trade. I mean, we import from Israel and we barely export anything. Until now, we have to recognize that the whole Palestinian market is taken hostage, I would say, into the hands of the Israeli economy. We are, of course, in favor of economic relationship between Israel and Palestine, but I think that this economic relationship should be built on the usual fair, internationally accepted norms between the two sides.
Do you have a banking system in?
Yes, sure.
Do you have a central banker too?
We have an authority. Yes, we have a banking authority, centralized one, which supervise and follow the
How many banks?
daily.
How many banks you have there?
We have, I think, 12.
12 banks?
12 banks, yes.
Now, this authority would raise rates, or like the Federal Reserve here?
Yes, largely like any central bank anywhere, and this authority is preparing plans for new Palestinian money.
Your currency is shekels now?
Now, we don't have any legal tender. In the market, we deal with everything, dollars, dinars, Jordanian dinars, as well as the shekel.
And the one day you want to have, obviously, you want to have your own legal tender.
Non-currency, of course. That's what I was trying to say, that this banking authority also is preparing plans for the legal tender, yes, new Palestinian currency.
And you have passports now?
We do have passports. Immediately after the agreements, the authority started to issue passports, and I do have my U.S. visa on that passport as an invitee by the United Nations, of course.
And you have the customs authority in Gaza?
We have customs authority, yes, but the international crossing points are not totally under the Palestinian control. I mean, it's under shared control between the Israeli and the Palestinian sides. And frankly, the Israeli side is not making our life easier. There is still lots of difficulties and problems which make any serious development efforts extremely difficult.
If you look at the Israeli side, there's been a lot of terrorism against the Israelis, and so they're trying to protect their people, obviously.
Yes, you know something. The other day I was thinking about some U.S. positions and about some statements by the Secretary himself during or in the wake of some bombings which took place in Israel itself. I can recall that at that time the Secretary spoke about the impossibility of morally equating the bombs with bulldozers. She was referring to settlement activities. In other words, she was calling for the need of complete cessation of such terrorist activities for the bulldozers to stop. Now, the last 2 years...
I don't think that'd be a great statement with Israeli people who lost a lot of people. You can't compare a bulldozer to a terrorist. If she said that...
That's what I'm saying. She said that. She said that you cannot compare...
She's a silly woman.
You cannot equate... I don't want to get into that.
No, I mean, it's a silly statement.
She said that you cannot equate morally the bulldozers with the...
Oh, you cannot?
You cannot.
Oh, I see. All right, I strike it.
Yeah.
And she wasn't silly.
Yeah, she said that you cannot do that.
I'm sorry.
So these things stopped for the last two years, but bulldozers did not stop.
Are you working actively with the Israelis to stop terrorism?
I think there is enough security cooperation between two sides. Yes, of course, this is not my field. I don't have concrete information, but this is my understanding.
Okay, we're going to cut for a break, and I'm going to ask you, if there is a state, what does that mean? We'll be right back. Don't leave us. It's Nasser Al-Kidwa, who is the ambassador for the Palestinians at the United Nations.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening, a book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD in Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs in Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're speaking with Nasser Al-Kidwa. I have to pronounce it correctly. He's the ambassador from Palestine to the United Nations, and his uncle is Yasser Arafat. And he told me now he was schooled to be a dentist, so he could pull teeth if he wants. How did you get into politics then?
After getting the U.S. permission, of course. I can pull teeth outside the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
You graduated dental school?
Yes.
Where?
Cairo.
In Yugoslavia?
Cairo.
Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
And did you study political science or economics?
No, actually, I tried to study political science and economics, and then I had got one of my biggest disappointments in the first exam I had in that faculty, which led to my decision to quit and study only dentistry.
But how did you become a diplomat?
Well, a politician, basically, not a diplomat.
Okay.
Again, I think that is part of our destiny as Palestinians. I got involved in the political work during my years in the high school, even before I went to
in Gaza?
To university. At that time, I was in Libya. My father used to work in Libya. And
many
we, of course,
Palestinians
established
work there,
a
right?
branch
Many
for the Student Union. Many Palestinians lived everywhere in the Arab region. Actually, they worked hard. They participated in building the region, whether in the Gulf or some other places like Libya. And I guess they didn't have much of a choice after they became refugees, most of us. They had to find a way to make their living. And they basically went to schools, universities, and then moved to work in those Arab countries.
All right. A state, what does it mean?
Well, I think it means everything for
you want to have
an
army. You want to have an army, a defense minister, a foreign minister.
An army which is really very big and which is expensive, I don't think so. Maybe we want to have an army which is more of a symbolic one which could be an additional coherent element for the people as a whole.
You mean just a symbolic army so people could...
We are a small country, and I don't think it's a very smart thing to have...
big defense budget.
Big defense budget, exactly.
And a foreign ministry?
The United States will not be ready to finance that, we know. So
no, I don't think so.
We don't need it.
And how about a foreign ministry?
Of course. We will have all the trappings of a state. But on top of that, the state will mean even dignity for every single Palestinian. It will mean, of course, identity, nationhood, new beginning for the Palestinian institutions. And hopefully also a new beginning in our relationship with our neighbors, including the Israelis.
You know, the press has reported that Barak has offered you 94% of the West Bank already. You know anything about that?
I heard something like that. Of course, I don't like the concept of giving us and then figures. What we want to see, frankly, is the correct logic. We must be talking about implementation of Security Council Resolution 242, which means total Israeli withdrawal. So we are taking back what belongs to us. Now, we also will be ready to hear the Israeli needs and to try to accommodate those needs on the basis of this position, including possible adjustments of the borderline to at least absorb part of the problem created by settlements buildings in the occupied territory. So this is the logic which we will try to apply. In practice, that might lead to figures close or more than the figures you are talking about, but for us, we don't think that it's wise to discuss the whole thing on the basis of figures. We want to discuss things on the basis of principles and on the basis of international law and international legitimacy, in addition to the needs of the two sides and the way to accommodate those needs.
Did you hear anything about the possibility of a land swap, taking land in a different region and swapping it for land in the West Bank?
Well, I think it's a must because, as I said, the principle is the withdrawal, complete withdrawal from the occupied territory, in accordance with the principle of the inadmissibility of the acquisition of territory by war. Now, if the Israeli side needs some adjustments, if they need to maintain part of this land, as I said, to try to reduce the problem created by the settlement activities in the occupied territory, probably then we will have to swap this land with other lands, maybe adjacent to the Gaza Strip or maybe the north of West Bank. Or
what's your feeling about having a border that's sort of with a fence or separation? What's your feeling about that?
I think Mr. Barak is heading for a separation.
Right.
He's heading for fence-like, if you wish.
Right.
We will have certainly a continuous connection between Gaza and the West Bank.
How?
In a way which would ensure continuity. A road is a possibility, a bridge is another possibility, maybe a combination of everything, road, bridge, and underground. It depends on the technical feasibility of building such a road with minimal interference with the Israeli land. But we will also have an exception of this fence-like border, which is Jerusalem, of course, if we are to maintain the unity of the city and the openness of the city, not only for the two sides, but also for other peoples from all over the world, then some additional measures might be needed in this regard.
So for our audience who doesn't understand some of this, Gaza is located in one area of the region and the West Bank is on another region. I believe Jericho is the capital now of...
I think Ramallah is becoming much more important because of its proximity to Jerusalem.
In order for a Palestinian to travel between Gaza and the West Bank, he needs to pass through Israeli territories all the time, which could be intrusive and could be, problems with terrorism, etc., etc. So they have to find a combination which allows the Gaza people to connect with the West Bank people, Palestinians, without being obstreperous to the Israeli population.
And I think that is an extremely important element, by the way.
Yeah, it's important for both sides.
Yeah.
And even if you had autonomy, you would still need such a thing. It wouldn't matter. I mean, you have to connect.
If you have anything, contiguity of a land is a must if we are to have...
But then you have Jerusalem over here. So how you're going to connect? You would have to go through Israeli territory to get through even East Jerusalem, wouldn't you?
No, of course. West Bank, the only problem is the connection between Gaza and the West Bank. But the moment you are in the West Bank, then you can automatically, in a very normal way, connect to Jerusalem, of course, yes.
So that's the way you think the state will look. You hope that you'll have Jerusalem, and then the West Bank, and then Gaza, bridge over to Gaza or something else to connect
a connection between Gaza and the West Bank, When it comes to Jerusalem, we hope to have the eastern part as the capital of our state, while the western part is the capital of Israel. Special arrangement will be needed for the religious sites, including those holy to the Jewish people and those holy to the Muslims and Christians, and some additional arrangements to ensure freedom of access to all believers in the world will be also needed. The city will have to remain open and will have to remain undivided. We don't disagree with that. This is a position which is strongly advocated by the Israeli side, and we accept it. But
so you accept, we went through this once before, but it's very important. You would accept Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, providing you had East Jerusalem and access to religious holy sites, etc., etc.
Our religious holy site is part of East Jerusalem, physically and historically. It is part of East Jerusalem.
How are you relating now to the king in Jordan?
Well, we have, I think, a very positive relationship between the Palestinian and Jordanian side. We think that King Abdullah is doing a good job, and we think that we can rely on his support, and we can work together for the better future of the two peoples, the Palestinian and the Jordanian peoples.
It's an open secret that Yasser Arafat and Assad, the former president of Syria, did not get along very well. How about with Bashar? Is there a possibility things will get better?
We certainly do hope so. The fact that President Arafat went to the funeral indicate a wish on his part, as well as on the part of the new Israeli leadership, especially the president designate, if you wish, Mr. Bashar al-Assad, to open a new page and to start some positive relationship between the two sides. Of course, Hafez al-Assad was an important leader in the region. There is no doubt that his passing away will mean some changes, all kinds of changes. And on our part, we definitely want to see better and stronger relationship with Syria.
How involved is Hosni Mubarak in these talks? Between every time you read, there's another Israeli going over there to see him, or your uncle is going over there to see him. Is he well respected by your, obviously he is by your side. Can he do anything positive to help move this stuff forward? I mean, the peace
Absolutely.
process?
This is, after all, the biggest country in the Middle East. We are talking here about a country of more than 70 million population, one of
and growing.
The strongest, and growing. And President Mubarak, I think, also commands the respect of all the parties. The Palestinian side in particular believes that the friendship between Palestine and Egypt is a must, is something which is very useful for us. We always felt that we can rely on President Mubarak and on Egypt in general.
How's your relationship, by the way, with the Israeli ambassador, Lankri? Do you get along well?
Lankri, I think Ambassador Lankri is a good man. I think he...
You meet sometimes socially and...
Sometimes, yes. I think we need to do that more frequently. Maybe with the successful summit, we will have a new beginning. But as a whole, I think he is a very reasonable man. And
how strong a media do you have now in your country? How strong? You have many newspapers. Do you have any censorship over there?
We have a mushrooming process of media establishment. Yeah, we have scores of newspapers, and TV stations.
And how is your record with human rights at the UN?
Well, I think we are in much better situation than the average third world country. I can say. In addition to that, by the way, we could not be judged on this front without first getting rid of totally getting rid totally of the Israeli occupation. After that, and only after that, the whole international community will be in a situation to measure.
All right, we're running out of time now, so you got about 10 seconds. A year from now, where will things be?
Well, I think a year from now we will have two embassies, a Palestinian one in Israel and an Israeli one in Palestine, and
two ambassadors.
Two ambassadors.
Keep the people working.
Thank you.